how do you see that issue of compliance with safety standards and security standards?
Thank you, Vijay. For a moment, I was actually feeling like the ugly duckling.
No, we're dealing with chickens and eggs, not ducks.
Thank you for remembering me. Yeah. Good afternoon and salam alaikum, everybody. And again, big thanks to Royal Air Maroc. Royal Air Maroc is truly a Pan-African airline, and they also fly to Nairobi on a code share with Kenya Airways, and it's quite a long flight, 8 hours, but it's great to see the connectivity. But coming back to the question of cargo, yes, security is very important. As a cargo airline, we have had a tendency of flying to some very unsafe regions, like for example Yemen, where we operate a very large humanitarian mission into Yemen and also into Somalia. So for us, security and safety is very important. There's no compromise towards that. And I believe it actually starts from the leadership. It actually starts from the top. And what I've done is I've instilled a very strong safety culture within the organization, where we have regular safety meetings every month. But I think the most important thing is the fact that our Civil Aviation Authority has complied with ICAO's SARPs. And in addition to that, they have actually instilled a very strong sense of safety and security within the operators. Recently, all the Kenyan operators went through a recertification exercise, a 5-phase recertification exercise. And we were the only cargo airline and one of the very few which actually passed the recertification exercise. So definitely, it is a very important aspect of our business. In the past, cargo aircrafts had a very high level of incidences, but we've actually been operating for the last 18 years with a very, very good safety track record. Thank you very much.
Very important sector, ladies and gentlemen, the cargo sector. No ugly duckling on this panel. I deliberately did not bring you into the first debate on tourism, because I probably mistakenly assumed you were not carrying tourists in your containers. But then again, I can be proved wrong, and we can have this chat later on. Any questions or comments from you, ladies and gentlemen, on this safety compliance issue? And I think if the words of Mr. Dickum could resonate in your minds, because he put it very clearly and very succinctly in terms of this is not an area for compromise. Any questions or comments, please, gentlemen?
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that in some states, recertification process is going on a regular basis. Having said this, if we may recall, we do have in Africa a continental safety target of reaching global average and on safety. At the same time, we do have a Windhoek declaration and target to reach at a global average on effective implementation of international SARPs, standards and recommended practice. However, the situation is not as we expect it to be, though there is no fatal accident for the last 2 years. To any of the CEOs, to what extent you are engaging with your respective states in enhancing the effective implementation of SARPs, because it is a state which is audited, be it on aviation safety or security. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question or comment?
Merci, monsieur le modérateur, et merci pour les interventions de la part des différents directeurs généraux CEO. En fait, ma question est directement liée à l'atteinte de l'objectif d'Abuja en fait pour la sécurité de 60%. L'OACI encourage largement une approche régionale en fait par les organisations régionales de supervision de la sécurité. Certaines sont en place, d'autres ne le sont pas. Et en fait, la question que je voulais poser, c'était est-ce que vous avez dans votre exploitation en fait eu affaire à ces organisations régionales, et quelle est votre expérience en fait en termes d'efficacité et en termes également d'économie, parce que un des objectifs, un des arguments pour soutenir ces organisations régionales, et la banque notamment appuie le renforcement de ces organisations régionales, et que le coût de la sécurité serait moins élevé pour les compagnies aériennes. Donc la question, c'est de savoir, d'avoir votre retour en fait en tant que directeur généraux de compagnies aériennes sur l'opérationnalisation, sur l'impact de ces organisations régionales. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. So two questions in terms, I think, again, following up on Mr. Dikom, you're very clear and upfront in terms of the responsibility of airline CEOs on this subject matter, that you need to step up and tell governments what the reality is and what they need to step up on. The question being posed now is, maybe to the other CEOs, is do you share that view, Mr. Dikom, and are you stepping up to your governments to state that there's a need to actually ensure full compliance with ICAO SARPs? And how do you also relate to the regional agencies in that task? So national governments and regional organizations, how do you take that message, which Mr. Dikom so eloquently articulated just now, in terms of raising the alarm bells, he called it whistleblowing, in terms of, okay, what needs to be done to ensure not 60%, but 100% compliance by African states with ICAO SARPs? Can we start with Mr. Tewolde, please?
Thank you. I think safety is the primary responsibility of the CEO. And safety issues or safety compliance is not done for the sake of compliance or to pass audits or certifications. I think safety is a paramount importance in an airline business, and it has to be built in the DNA of the airline, in all sectors of business of the airline. In terms of national governments, there is no question that national governments should be up to the standard of oversight of their airlines. In most countries, not only one airline operates, but 2 or 3, small, big. But I think the oversight issues in the airline industry today is a bit complex and overlapping, because primarily there is a national government safety oversight, and then we have also regional safety oversights, like, for instance, we have EASA in Europe, FAA in the US, and so on. And airlines have to comply also by the standards of the countries that they fly. So there is also international oversight roles like ICAO, IOSA, in IATA, and so on. So most of these oversight roles and requirements and standards are similar or expressed in different forms. So there is definitely an overlap. But anyway, airlines should focus on safety as their primary business, and also as necessary success factor in running their airlines, because at the end of the day, the primary responsibility of customer safety is the airline's responsibility. So it is the primary role of the CEO. But we have to recognize, as you have mentioned, that overall aviation safety has been improving, and African safety conditions has also improved tremendously. And when we say Africa, as we said before, it's a big continent of 54 or so countries. So most of the problems are isolated in few countries. So it is very unfortunate that in conferences like this one, because of this very few number of countries where they have issues, the whole continent is somehow affected. So there is a collateral damage here in terms of reputation, in terms of brand. We hear Air Morocco, Ethiopian Airlines, Kenya Airways, and so on. These are highly global, reputed global standard airlines. And they meet all kinds of safety requirements. So that has to be also put into consideration. But definitely, in most, especially when the airline is government-owned, the civil aviation and the airlines have to work together. They have to also train their staff together because at the end of the day, they have to meet the ICAO requirements together.
Thank you. I think that everything has been already spoken. Safety is not a compromise. It is, all CEOs must understand that when an airline is safe, it will stimulate the business. It is very important. From the question that one person there raised, regional bureaus of ICAO in Africa, in my opinion, are doing very well. They are helping countries, and now on ICAO, we say no country left behind. It is helping, in reality, that countries that have the most weak performance in safety. And that's why now in Africa, the safety performance figures are rising. More countries are complying with the Abuja targets, which is also very good. But when my colleague from Ethiopian Airlines says it is of the CEO responsibility to take care of safety in the airline, and there is no compromise.
Thank you very much. Sébastien?
No, I have to share with you the emotions that are just going through my head, because I've been very new to the continent, yes? So I think I have the privilege to be the newest among the panelists to African continent. So I can say something from a non-fully yet African perspective, because I've been to this type of discussions and conferences many times. And frankly, I don't understand where this type of, but maybe I'm interpreting, question on security is coming. Since at least I'm working here, which is, of course, as Tevolde said, there is no Africa, there are Africas. There's 54 countries. It's different when you are in eastern, northern part, southern part, etc. But I haven't seen a single standard which is different from European standard, which is considered one of the most developed and mature markets. We are, first of all, under constant control. I don't know how it is in other airlines, but I can tell you that we have 2 rooms for auditors, because there is people keeping auditing us. We definitely probably have a good coffee, that's why they come. But we are under scrutiny all day long. And it is not scrutiny coming from Kenyan state. This is scrutiny coming, as Tevolde was saying, from EASA, from FAA, from our civil aviation authorities, but then from OEMs, the producers of the planes, who come to see if we operate the planes properly, if we comply with the standards, if our maintenance is doing what should be done. And I don't want to get into a diplomatic trouble, but I can encourage people sitting in this room to look at statistics of security of other areas of the world, particularly the one I'm coming from, and eastbound, where you had the country that imploded and you had 186 airlines, out of which I don't know how many, but about 50 were blacklisted to fly into Europe. In the recent months, unless I missed something, I don't know any African carrier that was blacklisted in flying into Europe. We all operate. We operate on different frequencies, different airports, but nobody was blacklisted. Why? Because it's on the responsibility on safety. First of all, always, I have never heard any CEO or any person in charge of any airline in Africa saying that security is not what he has as top priority, because it's not about only passengers, it's also about our common reputation as an industry, yes, and particularly seen as an African industry. So I would maybe not be so concerned because I think that the standards are implemented. I would rather be concerned by over-implementation of standards, because what I have noticed on the opposite, that when we can do one procedure, we do 3, yeah? Because it creates 5 jobs. So, which makes African carriers being less competitive because we are too expensive in doing all of these procedures. That's what I would see. But I would absolutely not see any airplane as a danger, or any of our internal procedures as non-compliant with what is absolutely the utmost international standard.
I think on this issue, if I could just conclude on that and move on to the next subject, is basically as Mr. Dikum, again, very eloquently put it, aviation safety and security, if only as a matter of self-interest as airlines and airline CEOs, must remain our top priority. Unlike the other subject of which we debated earlier, of tourism and air transport, which can and is often the subject of compromises and give and takes, this subject of aviation security and safety cannot be the subject of any compromise. This is not a matter of give and take. It's a matter of absolute compliance, not optional compliance. And I think it is clear that governments must get that message, keep getting that message from the industry to ensure that they give the resources they need to allocate to ensuring that this level of compliance is at its best. As they do this, and I think, again, I'm just reflecting on what I've been hearing here, is probably an unfairness in this discussion, and that relates to statistics, whether from ICAO, from regional organizations, when one continent is lumped together, as opposed to looking at specific countries' record in terms of compliance, and which I'm sure many of our African states have impeccable records when it comes to compliance. Some don't. But the fact that very often you see statistics saying Africa's compliance rate is X, but Africa is 54 countries. Whereas it obviously, the damaging part of this lumping of statistics is that it actually discourages, not discourages, but it sort of puts those who are actually doing a great job complying, puts them in a rather odd position, whereas those who actually are not complying can actually safely get the cover of statistics, so to speak. So I think it's time where we actually go, this matter is so serious, to actually home in on individual countries' record as opposed to lumping it into a continental or regional setup. Anyway, I hope I've warmed you up enough, because we're now going to get into something pretty more interesting debate. Not that that wasn't interesting before.